Why, hello YouTube. This is Baylor Mage again. We're going in with another PoE 2 video, but is the counterpoint to last time. These are the three things that I'm most concerned about for PoE 2. There are a lot more things I'm excited about than there are things I'm concerned about, but there are still three things that concern me specifically. This does not mean that it's gonna be really bad for the game or that it's bad for everyone overall. These are the three things that concern me. As a player, I'm worried about these three things. First, and probably the biggest problem for me, with so much emphasis on meaningful combat, deliberate battle choices, far more interesting mechanics and boss fights, and even the map bosses and the campaign bosses and everything, the fights look amazing. They look amazing, but they also look far more difficult. And they're still going to show up in a quarter of my maps. Yes, I can avoid them, but I'm still a little concerned that with this amount of focus on meaningful combat, proper decision making, proper reactions, and things like that, that I'm going to have to turn my brain on for a much larger percentage of my playtime than I normally have to. Generally, when playing PoE or indeed any ARPG, I get to turn my brain off for 70, 80, sometimes as much as 90% of my playtime. I get to just run around blasting monsters. Just continue to run around blasting monsters. This happens in all ARPGs. It's like the core thing for it. And then only 10 to 20% of the time do I have to like stop and make really active, conscious thoughts and choices around the combat that I'm doing. Now, as much better as the PoE 2 combat looks, it does sort of seem like I'm going to have to be a lot more active in thought while playing. This may not seem like a big deal, and it certainly isn't if you've got an hour or two to play in the afternoon. But when you have to have your brain on, you have to be actively paying attention and thinking that long. It can be really, really mentally exhausting when you do 8 to 10 hour days. It's half of the reason that I don't play hardcore anymore, is because you just have to pay so much attention all the time. And I'm getting old, man. I don't want to pay that much attention. So that's the first thing I'm worried about. To be fair, this may not be a problem. We haven't gotten to play it yet, so I could be completely in the wrong. This is just one of the things that concerns me right now. Concern number 2 that I have is hot swappable controller support doesn't appear to be in the game at all. This is a problem for in the ARPG sphere. This is a problem exclusively to Path of Exile. So what do I mean by hot swappable controllers? In every other ARPG that I do play Diablo 4, I do play Torchlight Infinite, I do play Undecember, I do play Last Epoch, and in every single one of those, I do 70 to 80% of my gameplay with a controller. I play with the controller, I run around doing my maps. For me, it's way, way better on my hands. People who watch my stream will know I have compression gloves that I wear while playing PoE all the time because I have quite a decent amount of hand pains and finger problems and whatnot. And being able to play with a controller makes that far, far better. However, I also don't want to play with a controller 100% of the time. It does not have the much better focus or able to target, or like when something is important, when I'm doing boss fights that require like proper positioning, proper targeting, things like that, controller doesn't really cut it for me, and I want to be able to use a keyboard and mouse. In every other game, in all the other ARPGs I mentioned, I can just be running around, doing my things, and as soon as something even remotely dangerous happens, I can just place my hand on the mouse, put the controller down, put my other hand onto the keyboard, and instantly be playing. And instantly be straight into the controller and keyboard mouse setup. And then when I'm done with whatever's difficult, I pick the controller back up again. This also means I get to do all my crafting, all my speccing, all of my inventory management, selling things, buying things from vendors, all of that sort of stuff with a keyboard and mouse. I'm not stuck on the controller. Having to reboot the entire client to change into a controller supported client is a Path of Exile exclusive problem that no one else seems to have. And not only do I have to reboot the client to change into a controller specific client that allows me to use the controller, it also forces me into a UI that I don't like, I don't prefer, and I don't want to use. So for me personally, Path of Exile 1 basically doesn't have controller support. I'm not going to be rebooting my client all the time, and I'm not going to be getting used to two UIs, and I'm not going to be using a controller 100% of the time. So I was really hoping that Path of Exile 2 would be brought up into the, current day and age where every other game in existence, I can just hot swap between them whenever I want. Just put down the controller, put my hand on the mouse, I'm off to mouse and keyboard, get done with whatever I was doing, pick the controller back up and run around again. But as far as I can tell, that doesn't appear to be the case yet. So I'm hoping that that's just not done yet and is still coming, but that's the thing that concerns me. I'm worried about it. And point number 3, the last concern I have, and again, I need to point out, these are just my personal concerns, not things that I think are going to like ruin everything. This is just like a concern. I don't even know that these will be a problem. We haven't actually played the game yet. But the third thing that seems like it could be a problem, and this is a big if. The new Atlas, specifically when you die in a map, you fail that node and then cannot progress through that node again. There is a world where someone might fail 25 to 30 maps in a row, and if that happens early enough in the grid when you hadn't traveled in a lot of different directions yet, there's a world in which how it's been explained to us so far might actually completely brick your own Atlas. If you block every single path out, what happens then? They didn't explain any failsafe. They didn't explain any way to stop this from happening. Now, you might be thinking, but Bailey, you would have to die 30 times in a row without a single success. Yes. Yes, you would. I don't think that's likely to happen to me. I don't think that's likely to happen to you. I don't think that's likely to happen to most people who are engaging in online content here. Basically, anyone who watches a single video or stream on the upcoming ARPG is probably already above the player level. Somebody who might die 30 times in a row without succeeding a single map. But that doesn't mean those people don't exist. And we are actively trying to get more people into Path of Exile. That's why so much work was done on the campaign. That's why all of the marketing is happening. That's why they're getting all big streamers from like outside to come play. We want a larger share of the market. That's the whole point, which means we're going to get a lot of people who are not used to Path of Exile. We're going to get a lot of people who are not used to the specific brand of torture that grinding gear games likes to put us through, and honestly we love, and they're going to have a harder time. And so I see a world where more than one person fails maps 20 or 30 times in a row and then suddenly can't do anything. So this one's a pretty easy fix, honestly, and there might already be a fix in that they just didn't tell us about, which would also make sense because this is a pretty niche case. You can't cover literally everything in just 1 hour. Maybe this is already solved, but I haven't seen anything and I haven't heard anything, and that one still looks like it could be a concern to me. It's sitting there on my radar. I hope that one's okay. Good news is That's the only 3 things I'm concerned about. That's all I have. I had way more things I was excited about. That 8 list from last video had to be culled down to 8. Otherwise it was like 25 long and would have been an hour video. Spoiler, I'm excited about the whole game. So way more good points than there are bad points, but those are my bad points. Those are the 3 things I'm concerned about. If you've got something you're concerned about, let me know in the comments. Maybe you can give me a 4th thing to be worried about. Otherwise, I will see everybody next time. Goodbye.